That can of soup in your pantry isn't what you think it is. The convenient dinner you're heating up for your family, the low-sodium option you switched to for better health, the beans you've been buying for decades, they might contain forever chemicals that accumulate in your organs, or cadmium levels that bioaccumulate in your kidneys over 40 years. I spent weeks investigating America's canned food brands. What I found will make you check every label in your pantry. Some of these so-called healthy options are hiding behind FDA loopholes and using mystery can linings that leach chemicals. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to expose exactly which 7 canned foods are poisoning you slowly. By the end, you'll know exactly which canned foods to avoid and what 5 brands actually deserve space in your pantry. Let's start with the canned food villains. Geneva is owned by Tri-Union Seafoods and positioned as premium tuna with that convenient pull-tab lid. Modern packaging for busy families, easy opening without a can opener. Sounds perfect until you realize the design was fundamentally broken. Then the 2025 recall happened. The recall exposed a manufacturing defect that allowed botulism bacteria to enter sealed cans. The product sat on shelves for months before the recall was issued, meaning families were buying and eating potentially contaminated tuna while the company knew something was wrong. They prioritized convenience over seal integrity. The easy open design failed to maintain the airtight seal required to prevent bacterial contamination. And Geneva didn't proactively test whether their innovation was actually safe. They waited until customers got sick. The mercury content is also high. Albacore contains 3 times more mercury than light tuna, and mercury accumulates in your body over decades. Combine that with a botulism recall, and you're looking at premium-priced tuna that's dangerous in multiple ways. At $1.50 to $2 per can, Geneva made opening easier, but forgot to make it safer. For anyone who bought this during the recall period, you were gambling with botulism every time you cracked open that convenient lid. Goya is everywhere. Major grocery chains, ethnic markets, budget sections. The brand trades on Hispanic heritage and family trust built over generations. Their canned black beans are a pantry staple for millions of families. The problem? Company silence on can lining material and hidden additives. Goya does not disclose what their cans are lined with. BPA status, unknown. Third-party testing, none published. You're supposed to trust a brand that's been around forever, but the trust is completely misplaced when they refuse to tell you what chemicals are leaching into your beans. The sodium is over 400 milligrams per serving, high for beans, but that's secondary to the fact that you have no idea what's in the can lining. Other brands disclose this information. Goya chooses not to, which suggests they're using older BPA containing linings or cheaper alternatives they don't want scrutinized. You've been eating Goya for 30+ years. If those cans contain BPA or other endocrine disruptors, you've had 3 decades of unknown chemical exposure. Familiarity breeds false trust. You assume a brand you grew up with must be safe, but Goya's silence proves otherwise. At 60 to 90 cents per can, Goya is budget-friendly because they saved money on transparency. You're paying for beans in a mystery can, and the company is betting you won't ask questions. Campbell's is America's soup company, trusted for over a century. Their low-sodium line promises healthier options for people watching blood pressure. The condensed low-sodium tomato soup seems perfect, comfort food without the sodium bomb. Then you read the ingredient list and find potassium chloride. The sodium is 480 milligrams per serving, which is not low by any honest standard. The FDA defines low sodium as 140 milligrams or less. Campbell's contains more than 3 times that threshold, yet they call it reduced sodium because it's lower than their regular version at 690 milligrams. Here's the scandal. Campbell's swapped regular salt for potassium chloride to achieve that reduction. The ingredient is listed, but they don't warn about heart rhythm risks. If you're on ACE inhibitors or ARBs, common blood pressure medications, potassium chloride creates heart rhythm chaos. Your medication already increases potassium levels. Adding dietary potassium from low-sodium soup can push you into dangerous territory. The sugar content is 10 grams added per serving, worsening diabetes control. Phosphate additives aren't disclosed but are standard in Campbell's soups, creating kidney stress. The can lining isn't disclosed either, and the entire product is marketed to people trying to protect their hearts while potentially destroying their heart rhythm. At $1.20 to $1.80 per can, Campbell's charges premium pricing for misleading labels and dangerous chemistry. They made it healthier by swapping salt for potassium. Good luck with your heart. Progresso positions itself as the premium soup alternative with better ingredients and sophisticated flavors. Similar to Campbell's, Progresso's reduced sodium line promises health-conscious options for people trying to lower salt intake. The regular Progresso Creamy Tomato Basil contains 690 milligrams of sodium per serving. The reduced sodium version contains 490 milligrams, a 25% reduction that sounds impressive until you realize 490 milligrams is still dangerously high. Reduced sodium is a legal FDA term that only requires 25% less sodium than the original. It doesn't mean the product is actually low in sodium, it just means it's less catastrophically high than it used to be. Progresso exploits this loophole by putting reduced sodium in large letters on the front, knowing consumers will interpret that as, now it's healthy. Consumer interpretation, now it's safe for my blood pressure. Actual reality, with 2 servings per can, eating the whole can gives you 980 milligrams, nearly half your daily allowance in one meal. The can lining isn't disclosed, so you can't assess chemical exposure risk. The soup is creamy, which means it contains dairy or dairy alternatives that add calories and fat. The marketing creates a health halo around a product that's still a sodium disaster. At $2 to $2.50 per can, Progresso charges premium prices for reduced from dangerously high to still dangerously high. The front label says reduced. The nutrition facts say you're still getting hammered. Del Monte is a heritage brand that's been in American pantries for over a century. Their canned peaches are positioned as convenient, healthy fruit, 100% juice, no added sugar, just peaches preserved for year-round enjoyment. Consumer Reports testing found the highest phthalate levels of any product tested. Phthalates are hormone disruptors linked to cancer and reproductive issues. Del Monte's peaches had more than any other canned food in the study. But the phthalates are just the beginning. Heavy metals testing also found elevated cadmium levels. Cadmium accumulates in kidneys over decades. Your body can't eliminate it efficiently, so every can adds to the toxic load. Del Monte does not test or disclose either phthalates or cadmium levels. No public testing program, no transparency, no warnings. The recipe has also quietly degraded. Del Monte uses less actual peach and more concentrate, reducing quality while maintaining the same label and price. The sugar content is 25 to 30 grams per serving even in the 100% juice version because fruit naturally contains sugar. But the concentrate process concentrates that sugar even further. You're buying what's marketed as healthy fruit while consuming some of the highest hormone disruptor and heavy metal levels found in any canned food. The can lining is likely BPA in older formulations, though Del Monte won't say what they currently use. At $1.80 to $2.50 per can, Del Monte charges mid-tier pricing for peaches that contain the highest phthalate levels tested and cadmium that's accumulating in your kidneys right now. They added chemicals you can't see and heavy metals you'll never know about until your kidneys start failing. Many of us have grown up eating Vienna sausages right out of the can. The tiny sausages are nostalgic for many Americans. Camping trips, quick lunches, budget-friendly meals. Well, Armour Vienna sausages are owned by Conagra and positioned as cheap, convenient protein. The ingredient list clearly shows sodium nitrite. That's not hidden, it's right there. But what Armour doesn't tell you is what happens in your stomach. Sodium nitrite converts to nitrosamines in stomach acid. Nitrosamines are classified by the WHO as known carcinogens. The conversion happens after you eat the sausages, which is why it's not labeled. The cancer risk forms inside your body, not in the can. If you've been eating these for decades, nitrosamine exposure is cumulative. Every can over 40 years has contributed to your total exposure, increasing cancer risk with each meal. The 2023 recall pulled 2 million pounds for packaging defects that allowed contamination. The recall happened after distribution, meaning contaminated product reached consumers before the company caught it. That's a quality control failure, proving Armour's standards are dangerously inadequate. The sodium is almost 1,000 milligrams per can, up to 2/3 of your daily allowance in one tiny can. Some reduced sodium versions use potassium chloride but don't make this transparent. And to top it off, the can lining is likely BPA but undisclosed. At 50 cents to 80 cents per can, Armor is cheap, but you're paying for protein that converts to carcinogens in your stomach with sodium levels incompatible with blood pressure meds and a recall history proving they can't maintain basic quality control. This is the canned food that proves heritage brands will poison you for profit, and it's the worst product on this list. Del Monte canned tomato sauce is a pantry staple used in pasta, pizza, casseroles, and countless recipes. The brand trades on over 100 years of American trust. The product seems simple: tomatoes, salt, spices. Canned tomato products have the highest cadmium levels of all canned foods. The EU limits cadmium to less than 0.05 milligrams per kilogram. The US allows higher levels, and Del Monte doesn't test or disclose their content at all. Cadmium bioaccumulates in kidneys over decades, meaning every can adds to the toxic load. But cadmium is just the beginning. The real scandal is BPA leaching from acidic tomato content. Tomatoes have a pH of 3 to 4, which is highly acidic. That acidity causes maximum BPA migration from can linings into food. Del Monte doesn't disclose their can lining material, but acidic tomato products create the worst-case scenario for chemical contamination. The 55-plus demographic uses tomato sauce constantly: pasta night, pizza, marinara, casseroles. Regular consumers are getting cadmium bioaccumulation, maximum BPA leaching, and sodium levels around 400 milligrams per serving that spike blood pressure. The recipe has quietly degraded. Del Monte now uses cheaper concentrate blends instead of whole tomatoes, reducing quality while maintaining the same packaging and price. No transparency about heavy metals, no disclosure about can linings, no testing program. If you've been using Del Monte tomato sauce for 30 years, you have significant cadmium accumulation in your kidneys right now. Your kidneys can't filter heavy metals as efficiently as younger bodies, meaning contamination builds faster and stays longer. At $80 to $1.50 per can, Del Monte charges budget pricing for the most contaminated canned food you can buy. The acidic sauce is dissolving the can lining and leaching chemicals into your food. The cadmium is accumulating in your kidneys, and nobody's talking about it because Del Monte refuses to test or disclose. This is heritage brand betrayal at its finest. Del Monte has been in American pantries for over a century, using that trust to sell contaminated tomato sauce to families who've been loyal for generations. Enough with the cadmium contamination and cancer risks. Subscribe and stick around, because the next 5 canned foods prove that safe options exist. You just need to know where to look. Goya makes both terrible canned foods and excellent ones. The no salt added line is proof that when they want to do it right, they can. The sodium is 5 milligrams per serving. Honest low sodium, just processing residue. The ingredients are brutally simple: black beans, water. No potassium chloride swap, no hidden additives, no chemistry tricks. Goya makes both regular and no salt versions, so they're not pushing you towards sneaky reduced sodium products that are still dangerously high. The protein is 7 grams per serving. Fiber is 6 grams, and potassium is 300 plus milligrams. Beneficial for heart health, not dangerous like potassium chloride swaps. At 70 to 1 cent per can, Goya no salt added is affordable and honest. Compare this to Campbell's low sodium soup at $1.20 to $1.80 with 480 milligrams sodium and potassium chloride, and Goya's value becomes obvious. S&W hits the FD, a low sodium threshold, exactly at 140 milligrams per serving. The precise definition of what low sodium actually means. They're not cheating, not rounding, not exploiting loopholes. The ingredients show no potassium chloride, no salt swap, no chemistry tricks. Consumer Reports ranked S&W beans as creamy, savory, with flavor maintained despite sodium reduction. You don't need to sacrifice taste to achieve actual low sodium. At 80 to 120 cents per can, S&W delivers on the promise. Compare this to Progresso reduced sodium soup at $2 to $2.50 with 490 milligrams sodium, and S&W's honesty becomes undeniable. Hunt's no salt added contains 15 milligrams sodium per serving. Genuine no salt with minimal processing residue. Total per can is around 50 milligrams, which is negligible. The ingredients are transparent: tomato puree, water, citric acid, spices, no potassium chloride, no sugar added, no hidden chemistry. Consumer Reports ranked Hunt's as best for actual tomato flavor, and professional chefs prefer it because the flavor is clean and authentic. Hunt's maintains umami without salt, which is extremely difficult. Most no-salt products taste flat. Hunt's tastes like actual tomatoes with natural depth. At 80 to 120 cents per can, Hunt's costs the same as Del Monte, but delivers 15 milligrams sodium versus Del Monte's 400 milligrams, with no cadmium concerns and transparent ingredients. Wild Planet is the gold standard for canned tuna transparency. They've used BPA-9 labeling since 2012, proactively, not reactively. When they found trace BPA despite using BPA-9 linings, they admitted it publicly and published the results. Third-party testing results are published, not hidden. Heavy metals testing is publicly available. Sustainable fishing is third-party certified. The company switched from BPA-free claims to BPA-NI when they found trace amounts, proving they prioritize accuracy over marketing. The sodium is less than 100 milligrams per serving. The can lining is specifically disclosed and tested for contaminants. At $2.50 to $3.50 per can, Wild Planet is expensive, but you're paying for actual testing, published results, and a company that admits problems instead of hiding them. Compare this to Geneva at $1.50 to $2 with botulism recalls and no transparency. And Wild Planet's premium becomes justified. This is the canned food that proves transparency is possible when companies actually care, and it's the best product on this list. Amy's discloses their can lining material: double-coated acrylic and polyester protective barrier, not BPA, BPS, BPF, BADGE, or NOGE. They switched to this lining proactively in 2012 after researching alternatives and determining that BPS and BPF might be worse than BPA. They made the choice, despite higher costs. The ingredients are completely transparent: organic black beans, water, organic vegetables, sea salt, no potassium chloride, no hidden additives. The sodium is 340 milligrams per serving, which Amy's honestly describes as moderate, not pretending it's low when it's not. Manufacturing is US-based, meaning supply chain transparency. USDA organic certification ensures no pesticide residue. Recipes are consistent and documented, not quietly degraded like Del Monte. Amy's earned trust instead of asking for it. They disclose the specific can lining when no one else does. They research alternatives and make choices based on safety, not cost. They're transparent about sodium instead of exploiting FDA loopholes. At $2.50 to $3.50 per can, Amy's is expensive, but you're paying for disclosed can lining materials, organic sourcing, US manufacturing, and consistent quality. Compare this to Del Monte at 0.80 to 1.50 with undisclosed cadmium and maximum BPA leaching. And Amy's premium becomes the best money you'll spend. This is the platinum standard: specific can lining disclosed, problematic alternatives avoided, transparent research, and consistent quality. Amy's proves canned food can be safe when companies choose integrity over profit. The canned food aisle is where convenience meets contamination, and most brands fail catastrophically. The worst offenders hide cadmium accumulation, exploit FDA loopholes to fake low sodium, and use acidic foods to leach maximum chemicals from mystery can linings. But the champions prove that safe canned food exists. Brands that disclose can lining materials, deliver actual low sodium without chemistry tricks, and test for contamination show that convenience doesn't require poisoning your customers. Your pantry deserves better than cadmium bombs and potassium swaps. Your health deserves better than heritage brands that betray decades of trust. Demand transparency. Support the companies that deliver it. Hit subscribe for more food truth, and drop a comment about which canned foods you've been buying. Let's see how many of us have been poisoned by brands we trusted for generations. Until next time, keep your standards high and your canned goods actually safe.